Matthews.
And I'm Gold Meadows. The clock is ticking to get those ballots in for Election Day 2024. There are several ballot measures that will be decided this general election, from a corporate tax on Oregon's big businesses to Lane County redistricting.
One ballot measure sparking debate across the state is Measure 117, Ranked Choice Voting. Ranked Choice allows voters to rank their favorite candidates in order with the lowest polling candidate dropped each round until a candidate gets 50% plus one of the vote or a majority vote. Oregon currently uses plurality voting, where the candidate with the most votes wins regardless of the percentage of votes. A yes on this measure would change the voting system for federal and state roles like U.S. Senator and Governor. The Oregon League of Women Voters is backing Measure 117, saying it would ensure fair representation.
This is when we have elections that are more than two people running. So if their first choice is eliminated, then they still have a backup voice in the election. So it's a backup vote. There's a majority vote when that happens.
More than a dozen county clerks throughout Oregon and the Oregon Republican Party stand in opposition. They say it relies too heavily on the Secretary of State's office if counties don't have a candidate with over half the vote. The cost could be more than $1 million to educate voters by 2028. Voters will also decide on a 3% tax on in-state sales by corporations in Oregon through Measure 118. A yes vote would approve the tax on businesses with annual sales of $25 million or more.
Supporters say that money would equal hundreds of millions back into the economy and an estimated $1,600 rebate per taxpayer. On the flip side, opponents say it could leave consumers to carry the brunt of the burden for the tax in the end through price hikes on everyday items like groceries.
One measure creating a clear divide among Lane County commissioners, Measure 2362, seeks voter input on redistricting for the county. 3 Lane County commissioners favor the measure, saying it would prevent multiple commissioners coming from Eugene, a possibility with the current map. They also say it would keep the commissioners out of the process of creating the redistricting commission, which draws those maps. Currently, each of the 5 commissioners selects one person for the commission, then 10 others are chosen without their input. Voting yes on the measure would mean members of the commission would be randomly selected from a pool of candidates. If approved, the county would need a new district map 3 years into the 10-year cycle for drawing new maps. 2 of the commissioners oppose the measure, saying it was pushed through to the ballot without public input, and they say having a new map drawn mid-cycle would come at a cost the county cannot afford, upwards of $50,000. Commissioner Lori Trieger says she feared it was a political move to have maps changed ahead of the 2026 election, which is when supporters of the measure, Commissioner David Lovell and Ryan Senega, are up for re-election.
Voters may want to take a look at their voter pamphlet for a couple of additional local measures on the ballot that may seem vague. Measure 20-359 will repeal part of the Lane County Charter, imposing spending limits on the county based on a budget created in 1984. Saying yes to the measure would remove Section 32 and those general fund limits. While this would mean property tax limitations in the Oregon Constitution would still apply, those within the Lane County Charter would not. Measure 20-360 will repeal a section of the charter that imposes restrictions on the development of East Alton Baker Park. The county no longer owns the 237 acres of land after selling it to the city of Eugene. If passed by voters, Measure 20-360 will remove Section 33 from the charter. As for Measure 20-361, a yes on this measure would repeal Section 34 of the charter, which would have created a public safety income tax, along with a separate cap on the tax rate with restrictions on how the tax could be spent. The problem is that public safety tax was never passed by voters. The tax cap was, resulting in a section of the charter that sets limits on an income tax that never existed. The only way to change the county charter is through voter approval ballots. Ballots must be postmarked no later than November 5th and received by November 12th to be counted. For those using an official ballot drop box or dropping ballots directly to the Lane County Elections Office, the deadline is 8 p.m. on Election Day.